We're live. Let's see. Assalamu alaikum. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to join in as we've just started our live stream. As you're joining in, please feel free to drop into the chat and obviously give us our salams that are due, but also tell us where are you dialing in from. I would love to see where in the cold Canada are you today and see where folks are joining from. Shaheen, you said you're in Oshawa.
I am, yeah. I'm sitting at Oshawa at our headquarters for Ontario Power Generation today, and it's cold out here. It's a little bit, the skies are a little bit grayer than I was hoping, but here we are.
Wonderful. Just make sure that all systems are go, okay? Because we cannot have power generation impacted.
You don't have to worry about that. Yeah, no, we're good. I haven't had a problem so far, and I can almost guarantee you won't have a problem going forward. So, yeah.
Excellent. Today, especially, I need some defrosting.
Yes, yeah.
The travel in was a little dicey, to say the least.
I bet.
Yeah. All right. So we have folks coming in from Toronto. Sudbury is in the house. Oakville, are we neighbors? I'm sure we are. Edmond from Toronto. Whitby, excellent. Welcome, welcome. We're going to get started in a few minutes. Just to give everybody a few minutes to join in, grab their coffees, grab their lunches, hang out with us for a little bit, and then we'll get started. Shaheen, this is your first webinar with us, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. It's the first time I've done a webinar like this, so I'm very happy to do this with Max in particular and with you, Aida. It's exciting for me. Thank you for inviting me.
No worries. I'm so glad we got a chance to connect. I find that every single time I do one of these webinars, I've added a new friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would highly recommend to those that if you are first time joining to our Max Mentorship webinars, you've missed out on a few last year, and you will find them on our YouTube channel under Max Muslims Achieving Excellence and in live streams. And you'll find some fantastic leaders that we've had. And by the end of those streams, you'll also find you'll have new friends. We always invite all those who are joining in to connect with us on LinkedIn and chat with us offline as well. So if you're looking for a very easy way to expand your network, I highly recommend checking out some of those webinars as well. Also joining the upcoming ones. So Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to our January webinar. We've been waiting for this one for a little bit, trying to get it in the calendar. Today, we're joined by Shaheen Shaikh. She is a VP Station Engineering at Ontario Power Generation, and she is here to talk to us how to supercharge our career, growth, grit, and leadership. Everything that we want to know.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, it is. So we have a few things that we definitely want to make sure we cover in the call. But as always, these calls are meant for our audience. So please definitely use the comments section to post any questions that you may have for myself or Shaheen. And we will absolutely go through the comments and make sure we answer all the questions that come up. So it's all about you and anything that you want to know. So consider this your personalized mentorship session. We are going to be talking about navigating complex career transitions, building credibility, which is critical in any career, but through engineering fundamentals and technical integrity, how to lead with vision and resilience, and some very important lessons learned from working across diverse engineering organizations. So that's our topics and some of the things that we'll touch on today. But I will start, as always, with our Indigenous land acknowledgement. As a Muslim, I begin by recognizing that all land belongs to the Creator, and we are entrusted as caretakers, responsible for respecting the earth and all those who live upon it. Today, I acknowledge with respect and humility that we are on traditional lands of Indigenous peoples who have cared for these territories since time immemorial. Here in Toronto, that includes the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations, whose relationship with this land continues to this day. In Islam, we're taught that justice and gratitude are essential duties. With that in mind, we honor the Indigenous nations who have safeguarded these lands, waters, and ecosystems, and we reflect on the ongoing responsibilities we hold to support truth, reconciliation, and equity. May our actions be guided by the Quranic call to stand firm for justice, and may we build relationships rooted in respect, learning, and shared stewardship of the land we are blessed to live and work upon. As always, we like to provide some resources related to improving and ongoing learning. We have a link here for 25 Indigenous resources to check out today. As we shared the presentation offline, you'll be able to do just quickly click on that hyperlink yourselves, or you can actually do a Google search and it'll take you to exact same resources. Before we get into introductions and getting to know our speaker, we would like to pose questions to you, and your questions and answers will be what guides this entire conversation. From our curiosity, when it comes to making career moves with confidence or thriving in complex environments, what are some of those challenges you're facing that we can help guide you through today? Maybe share some of our experiences and how we've handled some of the similar situations in the past. Another questions that we have, if you're willing to answer, what are some of the challenges that you're perceiving in progressing your career as Muslim in a non-Muslim environment, if that's a challenge for you at all? So please feel free to use the comments section, and please do join us in the conversation there. Let us know your questions or answers to these topics as well. So while Shaheen does her introduction and we get to know her a little bit more, we'll give you some time to pose the answers to these questions in the chat. All right, now over to Shaheen. Shaheen, who are you? Do tell us.
Thank you so much, Aida. It was lovely opening to the webinar. It's very exciting to be here with everyone, and I feel very lucky to be invited to be with you and to try to do this. This is my first time, so I'm excited about it. I'll just offer that I've been with Ontario Power Generation for since 2004. So that's about 22 years. And over the course of that time, I have done a lot of different roles at Ontario Power Generation. And I've been quite lucky in terms of having opportunity. I'll say that I started as an engineer at Pickering Nuclear Generating Station. I was an engineer there for the balance of almost a decade. And in that decade, I did a number of different I had a number of different types of responsibilities, but I really had two roles during that time. The first role was as a components and programs engineer. So I had all of the instrumentation and control programs for execution at the stations, and that was pretty significant. And I also had the equipment reliability program, among other things. I did that for almost 8 years before I moved into station engineering as a system engineer, and I had one of the special safety systems, which is probably one of the most important systems at a nuclear power plant to maintain well. And so that was a huge responsibility, and I looked after that system for a year and a half. I was lucky enough to move over to Darlington, and I was with Darlington in multiple leadership roles for 4 years. I started as an acting first line leader, and I was able to secure a full-time management position about 9 months into that in a different organization in the design engineering area. Once I was in design engineering, I was there for about 4.5 months before I was asked to step up for my boss at the time into the department manager job. And so I was stepped up for 6 months at that point as an acting department manager. When he came back to the role, the person I was filling in for at the time, I then went off to do some technical training for 6 months and learn about the nuclear systems in general, in more detail. And so that was really great. It was good 6 months training to learn about the station's technical operation. I did that for 6 months and came back to a permanent department manager role, looking after some of the um, commitments that we had to our regulator, as they related to our Darlington refurbishment program, which you may have heard about. It's a mega project, $12.8 billion to refurbish our 4 units at Darlington. It was like one of the biggest mega projects in Ontario to date. And so I had a part of the projects that needed to be completed on behalf of the station. And that was something I worked on for a year and a half. And during that time, I did a number of other initiatives for Darlington Station. After that, I was promoted to a director of engineering for our nuclear waste management organization inside OPG. Um, and so that was another step up, and I got to be part of the enterprise engineering executive team at that point, reporting to the chief nuclear engineer. And that was a lot of fun because it was a very different, it was a third part of the organization that I had now moved into, and also working closer to the executive level. So that was a good stretch for me and a lot of fun. And then once I think I spent almost 3 years um, with nuclear waste, and then moved over to Darlington Refurbishment proper as their director of design and design authority. And I was part of the team that's focused on the restart of the first refurbishment unit, Unit 2, and that went really well. We remained on time and on budget, and we were able to bring the unit back. So we're powering the people of Ontario per our commitments to the regulator and to the government and to the people of Ontario, of course. And so once I was able to help with that, I ended up moving roles again to go back to Pickering, which is where I started my career with OPG as their director of design and design authority, and I helped with that organization, or I led that organization. Especially in through the pandemic, and managing operations at a nuclear power plant with my team, which was very knowledgeable and hardworking, but it was a very interesting opportunity and challenge. So did that for almost 3 years. I then had an opportunity to go on secondment, and I went on a secondment, leaving like with OPG, through OPG, to go to a company in the United States called INPO, and really they are an arm of the nuclear industry for North America, and their role is essentially to be the center of excellence for North America and nuclear. So I was with them for about a year and a half, during which time I got to visit a lot of different nuclear power plants. A couple of them were international, and it was a really great learning opportunity to understand, sort of what does the excellence look like in the nuclear industry. With that role was in Atlanta, and so I lived in Atlanta for about a year and a half. I came back from that role in mid 2024. And at that point, I came back to OPG as the vice president of station engineering, which is the role that I'm in now. And my role is to look after the system engineers at both Pickering Station and Darlington Station. So our engineers at Pickering and Darlington as system engineers look after all of the systems that help make a power plant run. And so their role is to manage and protect the health of those systems and advocate for work to get done so that everything's working at an optimal um, position. And so uh, that's sort of the outline of my career at Ontario Power Generation. I'm happy to say I worked the majority of my career with OPG, but going to INPO in Atlanta was really beneficial for me. And inside OPG, because it is such a large corporation, I really have moved around quite a lot, and experienced a lot of different types of leadership styles and leadership challenges and leadership successes. So um, I do feel blessed because I have been able to move as much as I have and learn as much as I have. But that's not without hard work and dedication and nothing happens without God's will. And so I am thankful for that, and that is the thing that humbles me ultimately. I hope that was beneficial, Aida.
That was an incredible journey, which we need to dig into because my goodness, I would say fearless comes to mind when it comes to navigating the amount of changes and the things that you've chosen to step up for that always help lead you forward and upwards in your career. And I think that's, if there's one theme, that's definitely one thing that I take away as well from the career. Now, we also have here avid skier, swimmer, yogi, and image consultant. We promise we're going to touch on that image
Okay.
consultant. How?
Sounds great. I do
Yeah.
love all those activities. I mean, I've been skiing and swimming since I was a kid, and I still really enjoy those activities. Born and raised in Canada, so I was on skis in kindergarten and skis ever since. I've also learned snowboarding. I enjoy yoga for the purpose of, obviously exercise, but also mindfulness and centeredness, and creating some groundedness too. Um, Not to mention it's so good for you. And the image consulting thing was something I did for fun, but ultimately led me to, helped with my career in a number of ways. So we can definitely talk about that.
Yes, definitely. So just a reminder, if you have questions for Shaheen or myself, or if you would like to, pose us a question from your experience in terms of the challenges that you may be facing and making some career moves for yourself. Clearly, Shaheen has extensive experience in making career moves and working also in a very challenging environment. That is very visible, not just within your own organization, but externally as well. The importance of the services that are being provided, it's definitely something that is near and dear to everybody's heart. So definitely do take advantage of the opportunity to ask the question in the chat. One of the questions that came in was related to the size of the team. I'm going to assume in general current, but the sizes of the teams that you've managed in the past.
So my biggest first line leader role, I had 16 people reporting to me. Um, I currently have like 300 plus people in my role. Different organizations warrant different sizes of things, so things have fluctuated for me, but anywhere from like, 10, 16 people at the first line leader to like 300 plus people over the last couple of roles. Uh, and I am expecting that will further increase over the coming years, only because in this role I'm expecting to take on teams from other parts of the organization at some point.
So it changes based on the role. Okay.
I think so,
So
yes.
yeah. So for those of you who don't know me, I'll just give you a little bit of introduction. If you've joined other webinars, you have probably heard enough. So Aida Awan, I'm currently leader IT service management at Interact. In my career, I've dabbled in finance, a bit of HR, a bit of payroll, and I really found my home in technologies. I really like the fast pace of change. In technologies, I liked introducing the change and I like leading it. And over the many years, I've kind of found my way deeper into the technology organizations or technology parts of an organization. I've managed teams on the infrastructure side, automation focused teams, in general, with the slant on transforming and optimizing operations. Even though I would say every single day I use my finance and HR skills as well. I feel like that I've spent my career collecting skills more than anything. And every single one of the things that I've learned to do, whether it is in my personal or professional endeavor, has always found its way to help boost me along. So I definitely, I agree with you on the variety of interests, pursuing a variety of interests, because you never know what connections you can make with that and how it will help, but also being very bold in taking big challenges raising your hand and taking on roles that you may not be comfortable always taking on, and not giving in to your internal critic, that will potentially dissuade you from making the move in your career that later on you may regret or not taking. Right. So definitely lots of extensive experience in any of those fields. So any questions related to that, happy to help answer. And I see a question here from Asma. Due to recent layoffs, she decided to take a fresh start by returning to college to study accounting and finance. She's now in her final year, but despite of 17 years of professional experience outside of accounting and finance, I struggle to land entry-level roles in this field. My ultimate aim is to become a CPA. What is your career move advice to get into a new role?
I would say, like, what is really lovely for us now is that Max exists, and I would really use your network through Max to look for those opportunities. Sometimes it does come down to personal relationships and ensuring that, when there's an opportunity, someone looks for you or fights for you, or is your advocate on your behalf. I do think that having a mentor to help you through that particular challenge is a good idea. And I'm sure Max could set you up with somebody knowledgeable in these areas that you're targeting, and that they could offer, various solutions or paths, anyways, towards looking for a role that's appropriate for you. Sounds like you've worked really hard and you're continuing to dedicate yourself, and I think those are great qualities. And I think with some dua and some good intentions, I'm sure that you'll find something that's best for you. It's just a matter of time.
Agreed. And I find sometimes we tend to undersell ourselves when it comes to the career moves. So I've done a number of the resets in my career just because I was changing from finance to business facing roles, then to IT. So you almost always kind of take a little bit of a dip back. But I don't want to discount the experience that I already had.
Absolutely.
So my advice to you is think a little bit differently about the opportunities that are out there. I wouldn't always just look for the 9 to 5 job to give me the experience that I'm looking for. Tax season is coming up. There's obviously companies that you can sign up with for temporary assignments during the tax season to help, again, build your experience. You could also consult with smaller companies on their providing them some financial management services and accounting. So it's not always about working for the large companies or companies that have established, accounting departments. I would look at all non-traditional ways of getting the experience that you're looking for, and look at could you consult at the same time that you're also doing that? My finance experience helps me in IT all the time. So just because this was my education, it does not mean I leave that behind. So again, don't look at your whole experience and all of your skills to get you into the next role, as opposed to trying too much to limit yourself. So that would be my recommendation there. What would be your one good recommendation for mid-level leaders?
I think, there's specific changes that happen in terms of mindset or mental model on what your role is when you enter leadership positions. And so, going into the first line leadership role is often touted as the most difficult because you really have to change perspective from me to we. And you're really looking at, how do you look after all of these folks that report to you, as your first priority. Arguably, your first or second priority is between your boss, taking care of your boss's needs, and taking care of your people, and you being the third priority. I think that's a specific mindset shift. Moving from the first line leadership role to the mid level management role, I think the biggest challenge that I've seen for people is switching from, focusing on your department or your team getting work done to what is your role, crosswise, and cross functionally with your peers at the mid level leadership role. The two biggest challenges I see for people is creating that network with your peers, because your role as mid-level management is to translate the high level strategy down to the working levels in a way that is something that can be consumed and acted on. And so that is a specific action. And that requires, clear understanding of what you're trying to accomplish versus what your peers are trying to accomplish, and how that all fits into the overall strategy for the company or the organization you're supporting. The second thing that I think is pretty important is that communication piece, the ability to be able to switch communication styles, because you'll swing up to, speak to your senior level leaders and communicate, what you're doing and how you're progressing on some of these strategic initiatives. But then you have to be able to swing down in the same day, sometimes even the same hour, to be able to relate to your working level staff and ensure that they fully understand what the role is and in the strategy and what you're trying to accomplish together. So I think those two things are probably the most important things that I see are beneficial for mid-level leaders, and it takes a little bit of practice. It takes a specific mindset shift. It takes some leadership strength to assert your team in a direction so that you can focus on those things as your priority over, the individual acts that your department is expected to produce, or work on.
Yeah. I would add to that, in my experience, it helps at the mid-level to practice being a director.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Means how am I going to think strategically for every function that I own? So let's say you could be in your remit, you have multiple functions that you're overseeing. You need to be able to come up with strategic direction for every single one of those. What will the world look like for each of those a year and a half out from now? And then think about how do you now create the vision and the work back plan to get there for each of those areas. And then how do you put that into a cohesive picture that you can communicate and make sure that as you're coming up with these strategies and plans, you're informed by your peers, people that depend on your services, and your leadership. What is the strategic direction for my part of the organization, and how does my team fit into that? It's really playing at being a director, I would say, because to me, I'm assuming because you want to be at that mid-level, you want to keep growing up, and you will notice a difference between an executive who understands how to strategize for their whole organization versus somebody who only knows how to prioritize two things, and everybody else gets forgotten. To me, there's a big difference in the quality of leadership of somebody who's comprehensive versus just, blinders are on and I can only focus on two things and that's it. So definitely be strategic, be mindful of the planning, making sure that you cannot operate at where your team is at. You're no longer a specialist. You're not the support. You're the executive support. You're your team support. You're the front person to resolve the issues in between the teams. You're not the one to get the job done. And that's where, again, if this is making you anxious, think twice, because this is really like, if you want to be the specialist, then be the specialist. The teams in any organization, they need leaders that will step into what their role is, not revert back into what they're comfortable doing. And that can be, a big danger for people who want the advancement, but are not really comfortable leaving their SME space.
Yeah, I like that point a lot, Aida, because like the one thing that I think, changes from being a working level person to being a first line leader to being middle management is that you're leading leaders. And again, like that goes back to what you were saying, it really is different than being the SME or being the problem solver on the ground. Really, your job is to lead leaders, and that's a different and specific skill set that requires, a little bit of thought, some learning, and some practice, I think, in some cases.
Yep. Okay, next question. I have an engineering background and work in health tech. I have extensive experience in building and deploying all things AI. I'm interested in transitioning into energy industry, but I feel like the lack of domain expertise would be a drawback in my applications. Any advice on the approach?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I can speak for our company and say we're definitely shifting towards, modernizing our business and, developing AI in ways that are beneficial and responsible. And so I think that, that's something that we is a benefit. I think the skill set that you bring is a benefit. And I think for the companies that are looking to continue to be relevant and continue to add value to the society at large, I think those companies should be lending thought towards AI as an example and should be spending time. I think there's like a lot of discussion around this in the industry. You could go out into discussions on LinkedIn or, out in conferences and other things like that. There's a huge amount of discussion around this, and how do we actually use it in a way that's beneficial and creates the results that we want, but also managing the questions and challenges people are really genuinely concerned about. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for you, and I think you should see the world as your oyster. And there's lots of ways to get involved.
Yep. Especially with AI experience, honestly, I would not look at it as not lacking domain expertise. You can get an understanding of what it's like in that space by meeting people and saying, what do you guys do? How do things actually operate behind the scenes? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing where, and then intuitively out of that draw conclusions on where AI could actually help assist, right? Because the use cases may not be familiar to you, but honestly, all it takes is conversation, and then you'll be familiar. So it's not like you need a degree to be there. It's you need to be curious, you need to make connections, reach out to people, have conversations, and then invent a use case. Here's what I would have done. I think anybody with AI experience, I highly recommend, coming up with those use cases, yourself defining them, and then trying things out and modeling it out, how it might actually play out in real life. And then that could be something that you're presenting as part of your portfolio in your application. Okay, what strategies would you take in applying for jobs where there are 500 plus applications per job?
That's a good question. I think you really do need to spend time to learn the company that you're applying for. Is it possible for you to understand their vision, mission, and their drive to meet those things? What are the goals? And I do think that there's something to be said around, you know, like tailoring your application, your resume, your cover letter with that in mind, right? And using, understanding like what the company's trying to accomplish and how can you add to that. um I do think that it's important to set yourself apart by spending quite a bit of time on um tailoring your application. I also think like it doesn't hurt to reach out to people from those organizations and get insight as to, what would be beneficial. There are some folks that can offer that type of insight. I'll say in my company, our company is a very big company, like 11,000 people plus, I think. And so, there's a huge plethora of things that exist in terms of opportunity. And at any given time, our company is looking for people for all sorts of different things. And so, really getting in touch with someone of that area from that area would be beneficial, just to maybe get some insight. And I think you can use again Max or LinkedIn or some of these other types of venues to create the connection and ask questions. There's also oftentimes for some of these companies, like you can ask questions, you can email and get help from people from that company to answer questions. And I think that's worthwhile pursuing as well.
Yep, agreed. Number one, dua.
Yes.
If it's not meant for you, it won't happen. But if it's meant for you, it will happen. So I don't worry about it too much. Second, networking is more important than applying online. I can, more often than not, when I reach out to my network, if I find somebody in my network that works there or they know somebody, they'll reach out. And then applying through them through a referral link is more important than just applying through the LinkedIn itself or through their career website. So I would definitely say networking counts way more than applying blind. And I would be looking at every opportunity. What professional events are coming up where you could be meeting people, adding people to your network? Where could you be volunteering? It's not just what's in it for me. What can I give back? And when people see other people do a fabulous job, they're more likely to say, this person passed on the resume. I've seen how awesome they are at this. They obviously they're going to be great at their job, right? Even if I don't know how well somebody, I can see how well they're executing. So, making sure that you have the referrals, you have recommendations on your profiles already ready. If you take a look at my LinkedIn profile, it was professionally done, but I look at the recommendations, right? So definitely make sure that you have your recommendations from anywhere included for full transparency as to who you are. So definitely I would not be just going into it blind. I've not had many results from that. I've only had results where I've known somebody and there were connections that were made. So you really have to put in the effort into your network and keep that network strong throughout your career, not just when you need a job.
Yeah, I really like your point about making dua first. Like that was a good calibration because that's very accurate. Like starting with the right and the best possible intention. I think that's a really great thing to do. I like that. You started with that. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I find sometimes you get so disappointed after an interview you didn't get it. But again, I would like in the last like so many years, I'm thinking if it wasn't meant for me, I'm not even gonna like this is not something I'm gonna be upset about, right? Because you weren't meant to end up there because it wasn't there was something there that would not have been good for you. So then it's not like oh no, it's oh thank you, right? So it's really a mindset shift. All right, let's see. As a junior engineer that eventually aims to be in strategic management position, what advice would you give to ensure visibility for such opportunities? Would you also recommend moving from an individual contributor role to project management role after a couple of years of being technical to work towards that goal? Good question.
Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 questions in there.
Yeah. Maximizing.
Yeah. Can you repeat, sorry, Aida, like
So
the
let's
second
start
last
off with the
question?
first. You want the
Okay.
first one or second?
First one's good. Yeah, let's start.
Okay.
We'll go in order. Yeah.
So for a person that looks from a junior engineer, they're looking for strategic for that management role. What advice would you give to make sure that they have visibility that for their opportunities?
Yeah, so good question. I mean, visibility comes with excellent performance. And so, like, your first step, and as a Muslim, we believe in doing everything we do with ihsan, with excellence. And so it's really incumbent on you to be clear about the product and you know,
Oh, we may have lost you, Shaheen. Are you okay? Okay, we're going to give Shaheen a second to reset. So I'll give you a bit of my perspective while she's getting herself reconnected. Oh, Shaheen, can
complete
you?
excellence. That's the most important thing. I do think it's the thing that is your foundation. And as a person who I can speak for myself, I represent a minority, I'm female. To be excellent at my job is really the foundation for everything else that comes after. It's really difficult to promote yourself or to be visible when you can't meet deadlines, you can't meet expectations, you're not clearly the best person for the job. It makes everything much more difficult and much grayer for you to move forward. Once you are clear that your performance is excellent, that you've made it so that you are the most obvious person for the opportunity, those opportunities will continue to come. And I think it's important to create the network again inside of whatever organization you're at or even outside the organization because opportunities can come from both places and having good positive relationships with people, right? That is another thing to do with excellence is like ensuring that you are having really great relationships with people and having positive interactions with people so that people recognize like you are approachable, you're easy to work with, you're happy to work on things, you're happy to take on more opportunity. You can verbalize that to your leadership line, and to your mentors and to other people as you're moving through your day. I think that's probably the most important bit of advice I can give is be the most excellent. Make it so that you're undeniable to these folks, to other folks. Be undeniable and be excellent so that you're the most obvious candidate for the opportunity. And maybe we can move to the second question.
Yes, it's kind of similar. Like, would you recommend?
Aida, I lost your sound. Can you hear? You can hear me.
I can hear you. Can you hear me
Okay,
now?
unfortunately, I've lost you.
Okay, let's see if we can work out these technical issues. Okay, so while we're figuring out those details, okay, so Zara, thank you so much. I was just gonna ask you, can you hear me? But it looks
Oh
like you
no,
can
I'm
hear us
sorry.
both. So let me go back to the question, strategic management position. Okay, so one of the bits of advices that I would give you here is be the problem solver. So if you're still an individual contributor, understand what problems there are, chronic issues exist on your team, and then be the person that raises their hand and say, can I lead this? Can I lead this with other teams? And we'll figure out how to solve it. And make sure that we can actually get to the end of the job. So start with small initiatives and then start picking up bigger initiatives, bigger problems, things that impact multiple teams. And this way your visibility is not going to be just in your team, but also with other cross leaders in other parts of the organization. And you don't need to be a project manager per se, because guess what you'll end up doing anyway? You're going to have to gain the stakeholder agreement. You're going to have to put timelines in place. You're going to have to figure out what the solution is going to be and develop some sort of work back plan. You're going to have to communicate the progress of your initiative and then the outcome, the value of the same. So you don't need to be a PM to do any of those things. And it's something that I did right from early parts of my career. And I would highly recommend that if you want the visibility, you want to be known as a person that gets things done, that would be honestly the one way to go. And I hope that helps answer that question. I think it complements what Shaheen was mentioning a bit earlier. So we're going to wait for Shaheen to join in, but I'll go through some of the other questions as well. So we're not wasting your time. What's your take on the role of senior professionals at the intersection of finance and IT contributing to the finance and digital transformation? That's literally me. You just described my job. That today's professional services and consulting tech teams are undergoing to leverage AI and ML. Curious to hear about your thoughts and how it aligns with our purpose, values, and career ambitions as Muslims. This is a very complicated question. Ilyas, excellent job on that. All right, let's see. At stage. Shaheen, do we have you back? All right, let's see if Shaheen can figure out the last bits of her connection. I honestly think that it's extremely important to be very educated when it comes to AI. This is an extremely complex technology. This is not something that I would underestimate and just kind of, I would say, gloss over like it's an exciting new feature to be used. I think it's extremely important that any company that's using AI has a thorough understanding of what's happening with its data and what data is being used and how it's being used. So whether Muslim or not, and again, even in my own personal life, I'm extremely cautious. Like I'm very, I would say, technology excited, but I would be very cautious on the use of AI and access of AI to my personal data. Shaheen, we have some audio issues. I don't know if you can hear us now. You can hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
But it was a bit of static there, but let's see if it'll go away.
Okay.
All right.
How's that?
Okay, that's good. It's all good. Okay, so here's a question for yourself, Shaheen. Let's see what you think about this as well. The question is related to the role of senior professionals at the intersection of finance and IT, contributing to digital transformation and leveraging AI. Any advice how this aligns with our purpose and values and career as ambitions as Muslims?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have like personal experience with finance per se, but I think that that's a very challenging position, or can be quite challenging. So I appreciate that. And I would again say, I think, it is important to follow your moral compass, and we know what we can and can't do as Muslims, and it's important to assert that. It's also important to look for opportunities where you can freely practice your values and morals. And so I can say that at OPG, I'm able to do that. Not every company is that way. I think it's okay to look for a fit that's best for you and for your family. And sometimes that requires, movement and change agility so that you can find something that's better suited for you. I would offer that there's again plugging Max again. I would say there's lots of people with that personal experience that who can offer that type of guidance in terms of how they maneuvered certain situations, and that's what I would suggest as a good path forward. But I think Aida probably has better advice than I do in this particular arena.
Um, no, I mean, I agree in terms of just obviously, there is actually an entire dedicated group on AI and exploring AI applications within Mac. So, highly recommend connecting there, attending some of the sessions, and kind of talking to others that are really looking to thrive in this space. But, like I said, I like to understand the technology more before I make commitments in that space, especially when it comes to AI. There's obviously some great potential, but there's also sometimes we push ahead, and there's a lot of excitement right now in this space. We tend to push ahead without thinking about what the guardrails should have been there in the first place, right? Which is same situation that we face with social media. Because this is exciting, this is fabulous, until now we're starting to see such detrimental effects on the society from the same. So temper, understand, learn. If you are using it in your personal life, really be confident that you can answer what's happening with my data. What does it have access to? Why does it need this access? And so on and so forth. So definitely educate yourself first before giving it all, if you will. Okay. How can someone at the entry level figure out which career path and industry they want to go in without starting a job and getting stuck in that industry or career path? Excellent question. You can't. Co-op? Co-op is one, I think, would be a good way to try. A volunteer, offer to volunteer at somebody's company that could use some of your skills in your time to see whether this is a place where you want to work. Also, it's not a big deal. Like I've honestly started in finance. I did every job in finance, accounts payable, accounts receivable, general accounting, cost accounting. I changed jobs literally every 6 months until I went in, learned. I was like, okay, well, I've got nothing more to learn. I move on to something else. And then 8 years later, I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. Time to move on. It's not about being stuck. Are you learning? Are you gaining skills? Are you getting the compensation that your family needs? Does it meet other criteria for you in the greater scope of your life, right? Is it close to your home? Does it offer you flexibility to support your family? Like there's so many questions you have to answer. It's not just the one, right? So I would look at that and then say, okay, well now if I've been here and I still don't like it, time to move on. Be bold. Take a career path, even if it's a dip. If it's a dip in a role or maybe a little bit of a dip in the salary, if you need to make that move, make it early. And then hustle, When you make the change, hustle, make a name for yourself, take on greater accountabilities, make your name known as the person to get stuff done. That is a high delivery, high quality professional. That'd be my 2 cents. Shaheen?
Yeah. No, I really like what you mentioned, Aida, and I would just say that I would emphasize the part around like, don't worry so much about where your next, move will be. You really need to focus on where you're at right now, right? And doing the best that you can and making sure you're squeezing the juice out of every opportunity before you're looking to jump to something else and look for something else. You should get the most out of the role that you're in because that's how you prove your worth and prove your performance, as Aida mentioned. Like that's really important to do. You will have other opportunities. You won't get stuck if you don't want to be stuck. It's a free country, thankfully, and you can pick up and go whenever you feel that it's best for you and your family. And there's lots of resources here to help you with making those moves. But while you are where you are, it's really up to you to do your most excellent job. Create, like Aida said, make a name for yourself, create your network, and you can just determine at a later point whether this is something you really want to continue to do or you think that there's something else out there that's best more like that is better for you and your family. Then that's okay. It's your prerogative to pick up and move. But
Yeah.
be present where you are is my message there.
Yeah, I like that. And honestly, I completely agree. And it doesn't matter what the job is. For first few years, when we came to Canada, I was working as a waitress in a hotel. And even that job, I was like, how can I be the best that I can be? Even though I was weak and I could not carry lots of plates and very big trays, how can I still be the best at this? How can I provide the best service? How can I, my tables get the best experience because I am their waitress. So it doesn't matter. Like the biggest things about leadership, I didn't learn when I was in a leadership role. I actually learned in that hotel, seeing people at all different levels working and providing and putting aside their ego to provide the best service, the best care to their customers, and doing what's best for the organization versus what's best for me. So I attribute a lot of how I operate because of that job, not because all of a sudden I'm an executive and therefore I got this experience at that level. No, it's everywhere throughout your career. If you're present, if you show up in the best way possible, and you leave, and I would want people to say that, okay, even if she was here for a short period of time, we felt it, right? We knew she was here, her absence is felt, right? So that's extremely important to my brand, as a human being and as a Muslim.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have one last question. How do you balance leadership and career growth with other aspects of your life, like being parent, being there for your kids, self-care, professional development, and work-life balance? I love it.
Yeah.
Good questions, Zahra.
Yeah, that's a good question, but I'll say that I'm single and I'm not married with children yet. I hope to be one day, but at the moment I'm not. I do see a lot of my friends and colleagues managing through this, and I think it's a lot about choices. I do have a family, of course, and I still have many pushes and pulls in my personal life around supporting my family. And so it's really important for me to be clear about, what I want to accomplish in my career, um, and what I want to accomplish in my personal life, and being clear about when I'm going to invest in each, right? And so sometimes it does come to making a decision, right? Like making decisions around how you're going to support something, and where you're going to have boundaries. I think that's also important. So for me personally, like when I go home on a Friday night, I will put my phone away and I'll spend time to have some downtime and relax. There are times in my career where I did not have that opportunity to, to take time away. And there's been other times in my career where I've been able to take some time. And so things naturally ebb and flow. You do have to accept that at times, that sometimes you are going to be on a lot more than in other times in your career and other roles in your career. And I think having the right support system around you with friends and family is very important to establish, so that once you're like when you jump into something like that, an opportunity like that, you're able to manage it with some with a cushion and with the ability to fill your cup. So I think it's really a case by case thing. Looking for support in these places is really important. And there's a lot to be said about taking time for oneself, doing the things that fill your cup. There's things to be said about managing your mental health. There are many
Mhm.
resources out there in terms of support through your local masjid, through any imam or otherwise other advisors there. There are therapists. There are there's all kinds of things that you can do to get that extra emotional support if it's needed. And I would encourage exploring things like that if what you have at the moment isn't sufficing, to ensure that you're creating those healthy boundaries and healthy definition for yourself and good work-life balance.
Yeah, excellent points. I'll add for those that are single, marrying wisely plays an important factor, because I would say being on the same page with your partner around what needs to happen for both of your careers is extremely important. Obviously, it's extremely difficult in Canada here with a single income, and a number of other countries the same problem. But making sure that the accountabilities for home and parenting are somewhat distributed, right? They won't be equal for sure. It's almost impossible to achieve that, but that there is a good support there. That's number one. I think when I see working moms, the biggest stressor is if they're not getting the support at home. They feel like a lot of the parenting is on them, as well as a lot of the commitment to their career goals and work that they need to deliver against. When it comes to self-care, like, not you won't have everything all at the same time. Some things have to be reprioritized. I can tell you that I don't spend a lot of time with my friends when my kids were small. I see my family and I see my kids, and my kids' time is my self-care time, right? That's we play, we relax, we do our stuff. It's not time to work. And I combine some of these things. And to me, it felt like I was getting better balance while my kids were awake, that I'm using that time very wisely. Once they're gone to sleep, then obviously I can do other things, whether it's self-care or other work commitments. But it's continuous balance and continuous rebalance. Like, almost every single month, you have to rethink how are you going to get through the next month with next set of priorities as the kids are growing up, changing, and things that they need to do. It's not always a balance. It is what feels good, what feels right for you, that you don't feel like you're failing as a human being, as a Muslim, as a parent, and as a professional, right? Those things are important. Okay, sorry, there's one more for you, Shaheen. I think this one is important to touch on. 12 years of professional experience, including governance roles, such as president of Foundations Board and a member of multiple school boards. Works as a strategic advisor and executive assistant, but feels that advancement in Quebec is difficult with a hijab. Is moved to Ottawa and hoped for better opportunities in Ontario, but how can she position herself for management roles without compromising her deen or her hijab?
Yeah, I don't think you have to compromise your deen or your hijab. I have not, and I will say that I that is goes back to my initial position on, being the most excellent at your role, being undeniable in the way that you produce results and create relationships with people. I think that's the kind of thing that will carry you forward through any kind of quote unquote differences that you might see in yourself. I think you also need to see yourself as part of the team and not see yourself as other. I think that's really important in terms of mindset, mental model, because it really does affect how you see yourself and how other people see you as well. So I think it's important to be clear about who you are, what you do, and the value that you bring. Strong performance, good relationships, and be clear about who you are for yourself and for others' sake.
Mic drop. I have nothing to add. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you found this session very helpful. And you made time during your lunch hour to hang out with us and kind of answer some of these questions and talk to Shaheen and get to know her. And now you have another friend in your network. Please do feel free to reach out to both of us on LinkedIn. We can connect. And obviously feel free to share the recording to those who may have missed it but would find value out of it, and stay tuned for additional webinars that we have scheduled. There's quite a few this year that we have planned, as well as the mentorship program. Max is going to be kicking off very soon, so stay tuned for all of that. If you're interested in growth and require a mentor to help you with that, please do keep an eye out on that, as well as share it with our community. Salam alaikum to you all. Have yourself a great and I hope very warm Tuesday. Shaheen, it was absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Salam
We will
alaikum.
talk. Salam alaikum, everybody. Take care.